Intro.
Get Phoebe to do a little musical intro
don't have
for you
intro
or
music,
something.
so. Welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Ebert. He is Mark Messina. And welcome back, North Central Cinema's own Joe Smith. We are doing movie award season, all thing Oscars. We're going to talk about how to fix them, new categories, some of our favorites. We're going to go through the nominees, all of those things. Joe, before I get to you, we start off every show with the same question. Now that this is your second time now, so you should be used to this. Mark, how are you feeling today?
Well, it's warm,
Okay.
so that's good.
To start,
it is the official tip-off of March Madness, which I usually hate the Tuesday games, but tonight's games are pretty decent, so
Okay.
I'm not miserable by those. And it is also one of the most historically literary days in history, which of course you English guys know that.
Are we on the Ides of March? I had completely forgotten about that.
So this is, I mean, is there a more famous literary day than the Ides of March?
I don't know, there might be, but I can't think of one offhand.
So therefore, there probably isn't. So this is it. Beware. That's all I can tell you today. The word of the day is beware.
We're not letting any senators with knives into the room.
No, et tu, Brute.
And also, Joe, how are you feeling today?
Oh, I'm great.
Awesome.
Not only is it warm, but I'm going to be in Florida at this time tomorrow. So,
yeah, congratulations.
Well, that must suck. What part?
We're going to Pine Island. We're going to go. You guys know Lance and Robin Van Auken? They moved down there.
I know the last name.
We're going to go visit them.
Where is Pine Island? Which?
Between Fort Myers and Sanibel Island.
Oh, so you're over on the Gulf
Coast.
Okay.
Awesome. Good stuff. So Joe's back. Last time we did our most influential movies. So movies that made us feel a certain way or influenced us at an important point of our lives. Now that it's March, movie award season is upon us. Our Oscars are coming up, I believe, in about 2 weeks or so. So we figured we'd go through the Oscars, we'd go through awards, but some deeper conversations as well, such as like, why has nobody seen these movies? How do we fix the Oscars? How do we fix the categories? And then also maybe our favorites that we saw, whether they're nominated or not. We might even dive into things we're excited for, nominated or not. We might even dive into things we're excited for. It's going to be free flowing. We'll see the next season. It's going to be free flowing. We'll see where the conversation takes us. Joe, I'm going to put you on the spot here right from the start. As you were going through some of these nominations, and we were kind of spitballing a little bit before the show. Was there something that stood out to you? Was there something that surprised you? Was there a theme you happened to notice? I think every year there can kind of pick something out and say, this is the thing I noticed. What was the thing this year?
Well, it's been trending this way now for a while, Jeff. And the thing is, you look at the list and you think, I haven't seen half these movies, or I haven't seen 2/3 of these movies. And I'm a film critic, and so I know I'm not alone. The choices are becoming more esoteric, more independent, harder to see, and more rarefied. And I think that's one of the reasons why people have. They've almost viewership is down almost 50%, which is hard to believe. You know, that used to be
of the award show.
Yeah, between I think it was. I've got it written down here somewhere, but I think it was between 19 and 20. Viewership dropped 50%.
Wow.
Yep.
I knew it was down. I did not know it was down that much.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Well, it is, as you've talked about there. My issue with the Academy Awards has always been. You know, when you give sports awards, kind of no matter what the personality or what the style of play or whatever, when someone is great or dominated, they usually get recognized, therefore.
Right.
You can have a movie that everybody loves, that everyone in America has gone to see, and it will get nothing because it's a comedy or because it's science fiction
Or it's a superhero
movie. And it doesn't fit the hoity-toityness of the artsy Academy Awards.
Yeah, you want to fix the Oscars? Nominate Robert Downey Jr. for an Academy Award. How did he not get nominated for Endgame? Yeah. Everybody loves the guy. He's a box office phenomenon. He hasn't been nominated since the 90s when he did that movie about Chaplin. It wouldn't kill him to nominate him once.
He got nominated for Chaplin?
Yeah.
Okay.
He didn't win, though.
Yeah, it is phenomenal how the Marvel just kind of gets some. Now, Black Panther did get nominated
for Best Picture, among other things, yeah.
And that was finally, I think maybe we thought that would kind of be like the beginning of the flood into this, like making it acceptable.
Yeah,
but when you look at the last year or two, like that was not the case. It was almost just kind of like a Band-Aid, like, all right, like here you go, we'll satisfy you. But they certainly have not let the Marvel and the superheroes into these categories.
Well, you know, the part of the background here, we're going down a rabbit hole, but it is interesting.
That's the show. The show is the rabbit hole.
Thinking out loud while going down a rabbit hole.
That's right.
The I can't remember the year. We'd have to look it up, but it was about 10 or 12 years ago, and The Dark Knight failed to get nominated for Best Picture.
Okay.
And everyone, even the critics loved that film. I mean, that was a film that everybody loved. The audiences piled onto it, and critics raved about it. And so the Academy looked at each other and said, "That's crazy. We have got to broaden the Best Picture categories from 5 to 10." So they did that. So if that's the case, why are we not seeing any superhero in the could they not nominate or Endgame? We wouldn't kill them to nominate one film that was popular.
That's a good point, because that was kind of the selling point of expanding its head. I think people forget about that.
Yeah, how do we snub these movies that are so beloved by everyone?
Yeah. So let's start here. We can just start with Best Picture. And I think the category, before we go through some of these films, I think the most prevalent topic is, I think I said I've seen 5 out of the 10. I've seen half. Joe, you said you saw 4? 3?
3, yeah.
3. And then Mark, you said
I haven't seen any.
That you had not seen any. And we agreed that might be one of the bigger topics. Whether or not you've seen the movies.
Well, rattle them off real quick so people can. Yeah.
So the movies this year for Best Picture are Belfast, Coda, Don't Look Up, Drive My Car, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, and West Side Story. I think what you're about to dive into, and Joe kind of hinted at this, there's probably a disinterest in some of these movies for sure. Just like any year, there's going to be movies that don't tickle your fancy. But I think there's also an issue here of streaming platforms, availability, people still not going to the movie theater after COVID. I think there's a lot of things happening here that someone like you who loves movies has seen 0 out of 10 of them.
Well, and just in rattling them off, there's 4 I think I would see.
Okay.
That when you, I just recorded Nightmare Alley the other night off HBO. Might have been last night. I would love to see King Richard. Mm-hmm. My daughter has told me this West Side Story is great. Okay, is what she said, and she's kind of an old soul as far as. So when she said that, I want to see West Side Story. And there was one more early on. What were the first 2 on the list?
Belfast, Coda, Don't Look Up.
Oh, Don't Look Up. What is Don't
That's
Look
the
Up?
Leonardo, Jennifer Lawrence Netflix film.
Yes. So I've heard of that. Now I'm immediately enticed by Licorice Pizza because I love licorice and I love pizza. I would not have them together, but I have no idea what. I can't even guess what that's about.
You might be disappointed going into the movie.
I don't think there's too much pizza in that movie, Mark, to be honest.
I mean, I've heard. You give me just the title. I can't even guess what the plot is.
So back to the question I was prodding, like, what is do you think it's disinterest? Do you think it's, because you just said, no, half of these films, like, I think I'm interested in seeing them. Is it a lack of availability on streaming? Is it time, like not going to the theaters anymore? Like, why do you think you haven't seen these movies?
Well, historically, because I think a lot of them come out, I should say a lot. They come out right at the end of the year in select theaters just so they can get nominated.
That's right.
And so a lot of them you haven't had a chance to see. And then I'm one of these that after I watch the show, I watch them on the backside.
Okay.
Because I remember I did that with Moonlight.
Mm-hmm.
I did that with the one Lion.
Okay.
So some of those, but I don't like the fact that it's almost, I think the Academy is very preachy in their standpoint that take a movie like The Hangover, which made $1 billion, which is an exaggeration, but it made a lot. Everybody loved it, but it's a comedy. It's a ridiculous comedy, so it's not that good. And we're going to tell you what movies are good, even though this movie made $11 million and The Hangover made $711 million. We're going to tell you why we're smarter than you. And even though everybody loved this and nobody loved this, you're wrong. And that's the whole, like some of these I see and I'm curious about, but like the movie that we've talked about that we love, the Ryan Reynolds movie, I can't think of the name.
Free Guy.
Free Guy. I thought Free Guy was brilliant. Have you seen Free Guy?
It got really good reviews, Mark, but I didn't see it. I wanted to.
I thought, and I went in thinking it was going to be dumb, and I thought it was brilliant. But it's about video games, and it's all, so it can't be that good because, and that's the other thing, like trying good comedy is so hard to create that I don't understand why it is never rewarded. Like, I don't say boring drama, but life is boring drama.
Sure.
To create comedy is hard or opportunistic, and the people who do it unbelievably well never get any respect.
Joe, before you dive into some of
Yeah.
that, can you tell the story about what your father said as a critic? You were telling us before.
Oh yeah, my father was a critic for years, and he was he also stopped watching the Academy Awards just because of the very thing that Mark is talking about, that they just didn't like popular movies. And he used to see a movie and say, nobody's going to like that movie except people, because he knew the critics would be crazy about, or the critics would all hate it, but that it would make a lot of money. And that's the kind of movie he actually kind of liked. And I'm kind of with him. And my favorite critic is Roger Ebert. And I will say that Ebert, now he's gone now, but he was not snooty. He could see a picture and say, this is going to make a ton of money, and it does its job. And he'd go out on a limb, whereas all the other critics were saying it was, cheesy or schlocky.
I remember one of either Siskel or Ebert gave Home Alone a thumbs down. Do you remember which one that was? I don't remember. Because that was one of the funny things they went through, like, which movies did you not like that everyone else liked? And one of those two gave Home Alone a thumbs down.
So, Joe, how do we fix this?
I don't know if you can fix it or not. One thing you have to do is you have to at least nominate a couple of films that people have seen. Put Shang-Chi on the list, or Free Guy, something else from the year that made a lot of money. Put some big name actors on here. People who like.
Here's a random question: should the box office matter? Should that be like a qualifier? Like if they make so much in a box office, should that almost qualify you for making the final
Well,
list?
I'll tell you what. If you look at things historically, Jeff, it gets awful sticky.
Okay.
Because when I was here the first time, we talked about the films that we love, and I quickly named Vertigo, which many people consider the greatest film ever made. Total bomb
at the box office.
Total, and this you can go back to and you can pick. It's a Wonderful Life, also, which I think is one of the greatest movies ever made. Did not really do very well. It only emerged much later when people started recognizing that somehow or other they had missed it. So a lot of movies that are now considered classics didn't make a whole heck of a lot of money at the time that they came out. They sort of emerged later. So I wouldn't want to make box office. But see, what I sense is, I'm not sure anybody in the Academy would admit this, but I sense that the big box office thing is almost a black mark.
Yeah, I agree.
It's almost like that movie made too much money. It can't possibly be any good.
Right.
And you just can't think that way if you're going to be giving awards out. That's crazy.
No, it's because another one, just to go on to his point, I know Shawshank didn't do well at the box office.
No, it did not.
But I agree with you that there are good movies that were missed at the box. I think Caddyshack did not do well at the box office. But on the flip side of it, are there movies that can you really look at a movie that made $1 billion and the critics say, well, it sucked? That many people can't possibly be wrong.
Well, it's got to be doing something right. It's got to be providing. We talked right before the show started running that when people go into a movie, they pretty much know why they're going, and they in most of the time the movie is going to do its job and give them their money's worth. Yeah. And I think you have to keep that in. Now, think about this: that if we just go back 20 years, you got Gladiator, Titanic, and Return of the King winning Best Picture. This was when people actually watched the Academy Awards because those movies made a ton, and they were good movies. And they made a ton of money, and everybody went to see them. So I can't quite figure out how we've migrated away from that. It's almost like I sense there was even a moment where the Academy sort of felt embarrassed that they had showered these awards on these big box office makers and had to sort of repent by nominating a bunch of things that no one had ever seen. But let's face it, Gladiator, I got no problem with any of those movies. Gladiator, Return of the King, Titanic.
I never saw Return of the King.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings. You don't like the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, God.
I knew you wouldn't like that.
Sorry I mentioned it.
No.
I didn't mean to traumatize you there, Mark.
So let's turn this into a game just for a quick second. And you guys, just yay or nay, here are some of the concepts that I was able to find online for fixing the Oscars.
Okay, go ahead.
One of them was delaying them, meaning you would give for 2020, this would be the 2020 award season. So now you get an extra year to see the movies, let them sink in, maybe even rewatch them, actually get a feel for how they're going to last.
So it's like taxes. Come
Yes.
spring, you're paying taxes off of last year.
Correct. That is one of the ideas or concepts I saw. Yay or nay?
Off the top of my head, I think it can't be worse, because how many movies get released in New York and LA just to get under the bar? But then I think those people do it for marketing purposes, because they know if we get nominated, it's the only way we're going to get the buzz, that we're going to make money. I don't think it would hurt, but that's just my novice.
I think it's a great idea. It never occurred to me because, take, for example, I can't remember if it was before the show or during the show, but you said you had just recorded Nightmare Alley.
Right.
So in other words, Mark, you're about maybe 4 months behind. And so is everybody else, because they're waiting for it to come free, or else it's on Netflix, or else it's, somehow or other they can get access to it. And so after 18 months has gone by, that's when people are watching the movies. They're like, oh, I heard that was good. That was in theaters a year ago. Let's record it. Let's DVR it and see if it's any good. So by then, I think your ordinary viewer would have caught up to a lot of these films and would be a little more on board. I think that's a good idea.
Good idea. Jeff came up with it all by himself.
Google helped a little bit.
All right.
Here's another one. We've hinted at this before. Mark and I have slowly talked about this. New categories. Mark and I have talked a lot about this, and some of them that I've thought of, and some of them I've seen on the internet. Like, I think there should be a best scene. I think there should be a best monologue. I think there's ways to chop up these categories to award things, best action sequence, I think there's things that you can do that people would be more interested in than, and I'm not saying that the best supporting or best cinematography or best, I'm not saying those things aren't important, but I'm saying that you could add some categories in that would liven it up a little bit.
Best nude scene.
Yeah, I knew that's where you're going to go. Yay or nay as to diversifying or looking into new or different categories?
Well, to just jump in, I think as a person who really loves movies, but certainly isn't I didn't go to college for it. I just like watching movies. Film editing means nothing to me. I've never watched a movie and like, this one was edited beautifully. This one was edited. So best scene to me is something I can relate to. And I think it also encompasses more movies where you're like, maybe the movie stunk, or the movie not stunk, it was mediocre, but there was a scene in it that was awesome. Mm-hmm. So it also brings other people into play. So you don't have to be on the championship team to make the All-Star.
Sure.
You can be a great player on a subpar team. So I like the whole, best action scene, best, whatever. Yeah. I think those are great.
Yeah, well, we're talking about fixing the Oscars, Jeff. One of the problems with the Oscars is it's too freaking long. So if you want to add more awards, you're going into some deep water there. Now, there are ways to fix the broadcast, and that it's not so swole. I think that a huge problem with it is it's so self-important. And they're obviously, if you look through a lot of the winners, many of the films and the nominations and awards, not this year, but let's say over the last 30 years, Hollywood tends to favor movies about Hollywood or about actors. And so there's this whole sort of ingrown, self-congratulatory, overblown hyperbole thing about it, which we could just get rid of that, you could shorten the thing down to 2 hours instead of 3.5. And you could get some of those new awards in if they found a way to not pat themselves on the back for an hour and a half during a 3-hour broadcast.
Oh, it's a really
not to go off on a tangent, but to follow up on that. Did you think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was all that?
I liked it. I may be about to get thrown off the show. I'm not a big Tarantino fan. But I did like that one pretty well. I did like that one pretty well.
I'm more of a Tarantino fan than Mark, but I was not a huge fan.
I thought it was incredibly okay. That's what I just like. Okay,
I
thought Brad Pitt was good. I thought the one scene with the little kid and Leo, like as far as best scene.
Oh yeah,
I think that scene was great.
That's where. So I think movies are such a long form. Like you just talked about, like how long the show is and everything else. there's such a long form to this that I feel like you don't actually get to award the best moments in movies, because the best moments in movies are hidden in these other good movies that's not going to win Best Picture, and they're not going. Like my example, we were talking about Nightmare Alley before the show. I think the final scene, Cooper nails it. I think he's incredible in that final scene.
Yeah, and so is Tim Blake Nelson.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, I don't know if Nightmare Alley should win Best Picture, but I do know that the scene I'm going to remember from this year is in that movie. And so how do I recognize it or honor it? How do you get it to have this moment in the light? And I don't know. I think there's categories that could be made where you actually get to honor the best moments in cinema. I feel like the Oscars aren't doing that. Right
because you don't relate to best sound mixing.
I am not typically.
Have you ever? Let me ask you this, and maybe this is why. Have you ever mixed sound?
I haven't mixed sound, but
so you can't relate.
You can't relate. However, like there are times in movies where you notice it. We were talking about Friday Night Lights, the last show, and like when they are playing football and they are hitting each other, some sound mixer crushed it. Like there's some dude sitting in a room that made you feel like you just got hit by a linebacker in Texas.
Yeah, because you guys know that most sound in movies is not recorded
correct.
live. I shouldn't say most, but a lot of it is not recorded live.
Yes.
It has to be layered in later.
Yeah.
So there is an art to that.
Yeah. I can't you're right. I can't relate to how they do it or like doing that. However, when I'm in a theater and I feel like I just got crunched by a backer, I can relate that the sound probably had a lot to do with that. You don't think that way.
I'm with you. I think
I agree with you that there are a lot of awards that it is hard to relate to what they are doing.
I think there is a small fraction of people who actually get it. And I think there's a little bit bigger fraction of people who pretend they get it. But the vast majority of us have no idea.
Yeah, it's a very valid point.
That's that I do have to chime in defense of film editing. That Hitchcock would probably tell you that editing is like the essence of film. It's just that it is so much of the essence of film that to some degree you don't notice it. It's like the air that you breathe. But to juxtapose two images against another is kind of the way film works. It's what theater doesn't have. Yeah. Theater just is one shot the whole time.
Ron Howard once said that if you're good at it, no one will notice it. No one will say this film was really well edited because no one will notice that it was.
Well, and that's why maybe if you talk to people who know film like you could tell me ones that were edited badly. But like, I just don't, when I watch a film, I don't like, look at the editing. Because
I'll give you an example. If we go back to the list here, I'll make a quick plug for Belfast, which I just watched twice. And I gave that.
Because you fell asleep the first time? Is that why you were?
No, I love that movie. I'm part Irish, and so it really did it for me. But there's a moment there where the husband is driving away. He's going off to work in England, and he has to leave his family behind. And they layer in Van Morrison's song "Stranded," and the lyrics begin to comment on what's happening in the film. Now that's editing. You know, how do we layer this film in so the lyrics comment exactly on what's happening? And it's really a powerful moment, and that happens over and over again in that film, of juxtaposing the sound, what you're hearing in the music, with the images. And I just had to make a plug for Belfast because I loved it so much. It might be too much of a crowd pleaser to win any Academy Awards, but we shall see. It's nominated for 7 of them.
We were talking about this before you got here. Isn't Belfast where the Titanic was built? And then when it sunk, so half of the workers on the ship were these men from Belfast, and the town was wiped out.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, staying on the top 10, would that be your pick, Joe? Would you give it to Belfast for movie?
Well, I feel
he's seen 3 of the 10.
I'm embarrassed. It's hard for me to say because these other films, Dune was obviously a great. I didn't want to see Dune because I hadn't read the book. I felt like I should read the book first.
Why?
And that's a commitment.
That's why they make the movie, so you don't have to read the book.
So you say, but I'd like to see. I would like to see how I'd be able to compare the two. And the book's about 1,000 pages long, and I just couldn't make the commitment. I think Belfast was probably the best film I saw last year. Although I also love The West Side Story. I thought it was just fantastic.
Really?
So. Either
My
way.
daughter thought it was better than the original.
I think so too.
Okay. That doesn't happen very much,
No,
especially with a classic. I certainly didn't think, for example, this remake of Footloose was better than the first one. It failed.
That one sank without a trace, pretty much.
It should have.
Yeah, what were the other two that you saw, Joe?
I saw Belfast, West Side Story, and Nightmare Alley. I have not seen
And Nightmare Alley. And
I
you
thought
said
Macbeth
you
was up,
preferred
too.
the original Nightmare Alley.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
I enjoyed Nightmare Alley. I thought it was better than I thought it was going to be. I think there are scenes that carry it, that kind of carry the lulls or carry the moments where I didn't think it was that great. The other one that I saw King Richard. I thought it was I enjoyed it. I'm not quite sure why it's on this list. I don't know if it belongs like in a Best Picture category. I think Will Smith's performance should get recognized, but I don't know if the movie itself was worth being recognized.
At the risk of a somewhat touchy subject, one of the things surrounding the Oscars over the past 15 or 20 years has been the catchphrase "Oscar so white."
Sure.
Are you familiar with that?
Yep.
And that may account for why King Richard is on the slate.
Is on the list.
They're trying to counterbalance that.
Very, very good point. I can't. I think Will Smith he's nominated for Best Actor.
Has he ever won?
Will Smith?
He won for Ali, I think.
Oh, he did win for
I
Ali.
think so.
Yes, I believe he won for Ali.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's done it before.
He's been the Men in Black guy. He's done enough silly stuff.
Sure.
But he also did like Pursuit of Happiness.
Did 7 Pounds, Pursuit of Happiness.
Yes. So he's garnered the spectrum, I guess.
And his performance is worth seeing. Like he does a fantastic job as their father. It's really interesting to see. I also saw Drive My Car, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I don't know if it's like
not to be confused with Dude, Where's My Car?
Not to be confused with
please.
Drive. I've never even heard of Drive My Car.
What is the storyline in that?
Drive My Car. So essentially, a girl is in his car driving. He essentially like hitches a ride along the coast, and it's kind of like a finding yourself story and finding yourself in places that you don't necessarily.
A road movie.
Yeah,
I love road movies.
You don't necessarily expect to find the answers to life when you find them. You know, when you come to these conclusions and they're always in the moments you least expect them. It's worth a watch. It's again, I don't know if I would say it's like this number one all-time classic, but it's very well done.
Let me guess. They fell in love.
Yeah, you got to watch it.
No,
I
I
also
don't.
saw Don't Look Up on Netflix, and I think it was better than what it got credit for. I think it got pounded. The whole media kind of like crucifying it because it was about media. There was that whole, but even if you set all of that aside, I think it was better than what people thought it was.
I thought that gotten good reviews, Jeff.
I think critics enjoyed it. Okay. The media destroyed it. So if you're someone who's looking up like regular movie critics, it probably did fine. If you're getting on like your BuzzFeeds and like your CNN and just any type of media platform, they just absolutely destroyed it because it essentially is an attack on major media.
Who is it? Jennifer Lawrence,
Jonah Hill, Meryl Streep's in it as well.
Oh, geez.
It's an Adam McKay movie, so it's kind of flooded with guest
talent.
roles and talent.
Okay.
Yes. Jonah Hill's enjoyable. Meryl Streep there's a scene of her in the Oval Office that I cracked up at some
She
of
plays
her
the
one-liners. Yes.
Meryl Streep.
Yes. And
She's probably played the president multiple
She's
times.
kind of supposed to be Donald Trump from what I sort of picked up with, but
Yes.
the female version.
Female.
Yes.
Interesting.
And there is a closing credit scene that I howled, like I laughed out loud at the very end.
Yeah, I've seen a few movies where the best scene was in the closing credits, so
Yes.
don't get up and leave. I'm going to piggyback on that, Jeff, because this is something that I think Mark mentioned a few minutes ago. You look at these 10 films they've nominated, only one legit qualifies as a comedy. Now, I know Licorice Pizza is pretty much a comedy as well, but that's really a coming-of-age rom-com.
Mm-hmm.
So you only got one movie on here that's a bona fide comedy, and that's Don't Look Up, and that is a satire.
Yeah.
Which is not always it's not a film like Tootsie or Mrs. Doubtfire or something. So that's a weird thing that Hollywood kind of thinks, well, we can't nominate a comedy for Best Picture because it's not serious enough. But I think Mark was saying a lot of times comedy is harder than drama because if you don't do it right, it falls flat on its face. And I think people ask me to name the 5 best movies ever made. And I always put Some Like It Hot on there, which is AFI's #1 comedy. Just an uproarious film. But again, didn't get much attention from Oscar. and it's now considered pretty much a classic. And that shows you, I think, how hard comedy is to do, because when you watch that film, they made it look easy, and it ain't.
No, comedy's very hard.
Yeah.
I agree. Is there, so since we haven't seen most of them, what is the movie, Joe, what's the one you're most looking forward to seeing that maybe you haven't seen on this list yet?
I'd like to see Licorice Pizza.
Okay.
You sold me on Drive My Car because I love road movies.
Okay.
And I like Will Smith a lot too.
For King Richard.
Yeah.
Is King Richard yours?
King Richard is the one. I've wanted to see King Richard right when it came out, because in real life, he was a little bit portrayed Richard Williams as like crazy dad.
Okay.
And like the over the top little league dad who drove the kids, and now when you see it, it's you hear about it, it's a great story. These two girls from Compton who,
Sure.
they're on tennis courts. You can't find tennis courts in Compton. Where do kids play tennis? Because you can't play at the club because they're not at the club. And so I wanted to see the story or the movie from the moment it came out. But again, I've been to the theater.
It was hard.
A couple of times. I saw the one with The Rock and what's her name? The Disney
Jungle Cruise.
Yeah.
I saw that at the theater with my kid. Is that the only one? Have I been back?
Did you see
since?
Shang-Chi?
No.
No.
I'm thinking
It
there
might
was
be
another
another
one,
one.
and I can't.
Free Guy.
No, I saw
Yeah,
that
you
at
saw
home.
it.
So is Richard Williams still alive, Mark? Or don't you know?
I think he is.
I wondered how he felt about the film.
I'd have
I'd
to
be
look
curious
it up.
know.
I'm not 100% sure if he is still alive or not.
It's always sketchy to make a movie about a guy who's
Sure.
still alive.
Yeah. We can talk about, let's save that for a sports one, because there's a very key point in that sports movie where the more they tried to do sports, the less I liked the movie. Like
Right.
I enjoyed everything surrounding it. And then the ending, there's like this 30-minute tennis sequence, and it almost deflates the movie. We can talk about that another time. The movie I'm most interested in seeing is The Power of the Dog on Netflix. I just keep putting it aside because I just don't want to be distracted, and I just want to be able to, like, lights off, have it on. I have been told that it is one of the most beautiful movies ever. Like,
The
just
Power of the Dog.
The Power of the Dog. Yes. And I've been told that the actual scenes and the scenery and everything behind it is just absolutely breathtaking. So I've been trying to be corny and hoity-toity, and I've been trying to wait for a moment where I can just solo it out and take it all in, but I have not found that moment yet. So that's one I'm most looking forward to.
Haven't we gone past the Western days? Are we still making Westerns?
Sure, we're still making
We're
them.
still making them, right?
Are we?
There's a Western, that's another great question too. I think a lot of today's Westerns just don't have dirt and sand and pistols in them.
Well, there's something we could really get off on a rabbit trail here.
Sure.
I'll try to control myself. But there's something called the neo-Western,
Okay.
so that it feels, the plot and the characters feel like a Western, but is set in the modern age. And we've had a lot of those lately. Hell or High Water was a neo-Western. What a great freaking movie that was. And then the director's follow-up to that, Wind River, is a neo-Western. What else am I thinking of? There have been a few others. And so that's kind of a direction that things are moving in. There's an Eastwood movie from a few years ago called A Perfect World, which is a great under-the-radar movie.
With Costner.
Costner, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
That's a great movie. That's in here, my friend.
That is
that's
A Perfect World.
Yeah,
There was probably a summer where flipping through HBO and Showtime, you would just come across it. I will bet you I've never seen the beginning of it, but I have seen at least the last three quarters a half dozen times, and it is Butch the bad guy.
Yeah.
It is.
Have you seen that, Jeff?
I haven't,
Yeah.
no.
It's an Eastwood movie, and he directed it, and he's in it.
Costner is the bad guy,
Okay.
and Eastwood is the cop.
What year about?
90.
Yeah, mid-90s.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've
Right
never
when
seen I've
Costner,
never seen
Costner was
that
at the
one.
top.
And
of
it
his
is,
career.
talk about an under the radar for an
Okay.
Eastwood Kevin Costner movie.
Yeah.
It's just.
But you see that, so the feeling of Westerns is in that film. I mean, Eastwood is a Texas Ranger.
Right.
And so you get films they're tapping into the Western mindset. And we're still making some. There was one called Hostiles a few years ago with Christian Bale that was an incredibly great movie. I think one of the all-time great Westerns. And so, yeah, they're still doing them. They're just not doing them very often. And when people make them, they go see them.
So see, I may be off because I don't know if it's off, but I'm curious what you would define a Western, because to me, like when I see regardless of the set or the scene or the setting, I always think of a Western as there's a good person protecting something, whether it's someone or a community or whatever it may be. And then there is a gang or a crew or just a group of people trying to stop that from happening. And to me, I always attach that to a Western. It could be on a spaceship, but if that is kind of the driving plot device, to me, that's a Western. I don't know.
Maybe I'm just simple. I see a Western, I need horses and cowboys. And yes, exactly. The last good Western I think I saw was 3:10 to Yuma. And I'm not even sure that's a Western. It's just set in the old
That
West.
is a Western.
There you go.
Did you ever see 3:10 to Yuma?
I've seen the new one. I
saw
don't think I've
both.
seen the old one.
Yeah, I love. Yeah.
That was
So
good.
anyway,
Hollywood doesn't care a lot for Westerns either in terms of the Academy. You don't see a lot of, except
Right.
Unforgiven, I think, won a whole slew of them. But you don't see a lot of those get nominated and win awards either.
Yeah. Is there anything else, just looking through this, like I talked about, I think Will Smith certainly should have been nominated for Best Actor. Was there anything when you were looking through, was there something that you had noticed or something that you had highlighted here?
Well, there was a couple of things. I really thought that I have a hard time pronouncing this name. Katrina Balfe, who is best known for Outlander. She starred in Belfast, and I thought they should have nominated her. And so did the director. Kenneth Branagh was saying that he felt she kind of got snubbed.
Would she have been leading or would she have been supporting?
I don't know. That's another interesting
question.
Oscar wrinkle. What happens with that, Jeff, is the filmmakers, the people who are behind the film, they decide which category they're going to recommend their person for. And they recognize sometimes if we recommend this person, like they did that with Brad Pitt. Let's face it, Brad Pitt is the star of what is that Hollywood movie?
Once Upon a Time.
He's the star of that film, but they nominated him for supporting actor because they knew he'll probably win it. You know, if they nominated him for best actor for that picture, he would have been up against the big boys and would have had a less chance of winning. So in this case, they probably would have nominated her for supporting actor. So maybe she would have picked it up. So yeah, I felt that was kind of an oversight there, and I also felt Belfast should have gotten cinematography too because it just looks fantastic.
Looks great.
Here, let's go off on a tangent here. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
This is kind of like a looking forward, and this is kind of like corny millennial stuff. I am here for like the Andrew Garfield like renaissance. For those of you who like, he was one of the Spider-Mans. He was just in the Homecoming movie, or I'm sorry, not the Homecoming movie, Coming Home movie just now. He also was in Hacksaw Ridge. I'm trying to think of some other stuff. He's always been kind of like just below like the top tier, like just kind of there. And I saw Tick Tick Boom. I loved Tick Tick Boom. You have to like musicals, and you have to kind of be able to. You have to accept the level of corniness, I think, to like really like dive into it in the music. I loved it though, and I'm here for Andrew Garfield to be like I'm ready for the jump. Like I'm hoping that in the next year or two, like Andrew Garfield gets kind of his fair shake. So there you go. That was the only.
There you go. There's your Andrew Garfield plug. So we will add him to your man crush with Ryan Reynolds
and everything. I am here for the Andrew Garfield renaissance.
He was nominated for Hacksaw Ridge.
He was. So, I think he might have been nominated for Social Network. I think he might have got a supporting nod. Really? I'd have to go back and double check that, but I think he might have.
And now, is he in that movie about Jim Baker? Jim and Tammy Baker?
Not 100% sure.
Yeah.
So do you have when you talk now, if we get away from this Oscars and talk like all time, my daughter, who you should do lunch with my daughter sometime. She's 18, but she loves the history of film.
Cool.
She thinks, or she has told me, arguably the greatest snub of all time was Judy Garland with the one A Star Is Born. Mm-hmm. That she said she was in the hospital ready to give birth, and they were so sure that she was going to win that there was a film crew there to get her reaction, and then she didn't win. Do you have any that now historically, when they look back, that you are shocked that they didn't win? And something else? Is there any?
Well, I can make Jeff very excited by saying that I never, as much as I'm a Shakespeare fan, I never can like Shakespeare in Love. Why? because it won Best Picture over Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
In what universe is that a better movie than Saving Private Ryan? So to me, that's where the Oscar lost a lot of credibility. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Shakespeare in Love was a good movie, but who did they pay? Because obviously Saving Private Ryan is in a completely different league. So that's one that I think of right away. And
just while you're still thinking, I've heard this before, and it is good that you said Shakespeare in Love didn't suck. Shakespeare in Love was a good, fun, and have you seen Shakespeare in Love? It was a good movie, but I agree with you. Yeah. It doesn't, and I think historically Shakespeare in Love gets beat up because of Saving Private Ryan, like it sucked. And it didn't suck. But even the people in Shakespeare in Love were kind of like, you didn't do us any favors with this one. We would have gladly taken second or third and been an honorable runner-up as opposed to being the punchline of a champion.
Well, I think I think you and I may have talked about this before too, but just timing. Like there's so many movies that just ended up getting stacked in like a loaded year where maybe they don't win it. And then you have these, I don't want to call them empty years because that's rude, but you do have
fair though.
You have these empty years where you're looking around and you're just kind of like, this year to me, I wouldn't say this year's an empty year, but I don't know if any of these, I don't know. Again, I've seen half of them. To me, this is close. I don't know if I look back from now. Now, Joe said Belfast is up there and it's possible. I haven't seen The Power of the Dog yet, but I don't know. I think there's years where it's just timing. Like if you're in the right year, you got a chance. And there's other years where it's just loaded.
Life is about timing.
Your classic is, there actually is a book about this. It's called Best Movie Year Ever. And that was 1999. And I know I don't have these in front of me, so I'm going to miss it. But 1999 is The Green Mile, October Sky, The Iron Giant, The Matrix, and there's 4 or 5 other ones. Oh, The Sixth Sense was another one.
Okay.
It was just an incredible, how did they make all of those incredible movies in one year? And then how do you choose from those and say that one was the best? So it does happen occasionally. And the other thing that happens is, and it's worth talking about this, Oscar is always slacking off in terms of its ability to recognize an actor who is at his peak. Like they gave Denzel Washington the Academy Award for Training Day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good performance. Why didn't we give it to him for Malcolm X? Which again, totally different league, but they're just about 5 years behind. Like we were talking about how Robert Downey got nominated for Chaplin. Who did he lose to? Al Pacino for Scent of a Woman, a movie nobody watches anymore.
Right.
It was a good performance, but you were 10 years later now, Pacino, dude. You should have given him something in the 70s or 80s. And so this is what I think when I start hearing snubs.
The most recent and relevant, arguably, is Leo for Revenant.
Right.
Because not because his performance wasn't good, but just, that's not the movie that you would relate to Leo's.
I tell you what, I think Leo is great in The Revenant.
No, but that's right. But I think the argument is that I think if you went back through his career, that might not be the one that you would give it to.
No, but I agree with the point. We're giving it, sometimes we are giving it.
Like we're on the Academy. It's a consolation prize.
It's a belated birthday gift.
Mm-hmm.
Like we know we owe you one, so we're going to give you one now.
And let's look at, as long as we're talking about, snubs, either you guys Hunger Games fans?
Yes.
Donald Sutherland.
Yeah.
Never nominated
for playing that.
No, I'm not just for Hunger Games. He has never received an Oscar nomination.
That's pretty
I was going to ask you that too. I was going to say who's the one who's never won. If Donald Sutherland's never been nominated, he's got to be the biggest nomination snub ever, right?
Sure.
Has Tom Cruise ever been nominated? Or does he not get?
He was nominated for Rain Man, and he possibly might have won.
Oh, that is true.
I can't remember. Maybe Dustin Hoffman won that year.
Well, yeah, but Dustin. Well,
and another big snub is Harrison Ford, who's been nominated only once for Witness. And let's face it, he's 80, and he's not going to win.
No.
But he's not going to make any more movies. That's it. It's over. You missed it. You missed nominated for The Fugitive, or my favorite performance of his is Mosquito Coast, an incredible performance. And he still can't figure out why that movie didn't catch on.
I can tell you why, and I've never seen it. Because who likes mosquitoes? I'm uncomfortable just hearing the title. Like licorice pizza, I'm aroused. Mosquito Coast, I'm scared.
We've talked about this too. Like in sports, people don't only one person can win it. Like it's hard. Like it's not. You can have these great performances and do these great things, but only one person gets.
Right.
And I don't think we always think of movies in that context of like you can make a phenomenal movie and you can have a great role in it and a great performance, but if it's the wrong, like only one person's going to take home that statue, and so that I just think it's harder than. I think sometimes we reflect, it's like, how did they not get that? How did not? And it is like blasphemous, but at the same time, like then you start to look back at it, and it's like, well, crap, like the best people only win once or twice. What's the most? Doesn't someone have like 4 or 5?
Oh, hold on, I know this. My daughter. Well, the record holder for most Academy Awards is Walt Disney.
Okay, that's believable.
But not as an actor. But that is the record. My daughter told me that, and I wanted it trivia.
I don't know who actually has the most.
Isn't it Audrey Hepburn? Doesn't she have
Joe,
4?
are you smiling because you know?
I think Edith Head, the costume designer, has the most Academy Award wins.
That would make sense.
Oh, really?
I think. It's whatever it is. It's a lesser category because the acting categories tend to be spread around.
That makes sense.
But for example, the Newman family. You guys familiar with Randy Newman?
Oh yeah.
There's a patriarch.
Paul's brother, Randy.
There's a patriarch named I think his name was Alfred, and I believe he was nominated 45 times.
Okay.
Now, I don't know how many he won.
Okay.
But it's the unseen categories that keep getting nominated, like costumes, makeup.
So
music.
Isn't it Audrey Hepburn has 4?
Here's the brief one. Hepburn has 4, and then there's a handful that have 3.
Hold on. The chick that we just talked, Meryl Streep has 3.
Meryl Streep has 3.
Nicholson has 3.
Nicholson has 3.
How many more?
There's 3 other here that I have in front of me. There could be more, but
We should straighten out, by the way, that's Katharine Hepburn, not Audrey.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just said Hepburn.
No, I'm sorry. There was a couple really old ones, like guys from
Spencer Tracy has several.
Has several.
Okay.
Ingrid Bergman is listed on here. Walter Brennan. And then the one that you're probably going to kick yourself for forgetting.
Hold on, is it recent?
Kinda.
Guy or girl?
Guy.
3. Tom Hanks?
No.
Tom Hanks only has 2?
He's not on this.
Tom Hanks
he
has
could,
2.
but he.
I would have thought Gump and Philadelphia.
Possible. I'm just telling you what's in front of me.
Hold on. Oh yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis, very good.
He's the only male ever to win it more than twice. Best actor, that is. My Left Foot, There Will Be Blood, and Lincoln.
Yes.
And I'm talking about best actor.
He
not
was
best
Lincoln.
actor.
How many Christian Bale have?
Maybe 1.
Oh, he got a supporting in The Fighter. That wasn't a lead. Didn't Christian Bale win for something else?
So here's the Oscar movie everyone forgets about that I want to give a shout out to: The Sting, with Paul Newman, Robert Redford, and the great Robert Shaw. Too good to be forgotten.
Yeah.
I've never seen The Sting.
For the person that just wrote in with that, one of my former students just watched that movie. He didn't know anything about it. So he's a real young guy. He's like maybe 25. And he was just blown away by it. And he didn't believe a movie that was 40 years old could be that cool. So that movie really holds up, apparently. And he asked me, are there some other con movies that you could recommend? Because
And
it just blew his mind.
obviously, Robert Shaw is Flint from Jaws.
Okay.
That's who Robert Shaw is.
Yep.
Is it true he made up that monologue in Jaws?
Which one?
About the Indianapolis and the
Yes.
Sharks? I don't know.
That's the best scene in the movie. When you talk about scenes,
There's like a
that's
rumor.
the best scene in the movie.
There's like a rumor, meme, like whatever going around that was essentially like improvised.
That does
telling of the
surprise me.
story.
That doesn't surprise
Which that is incredible. If he kind of riffed that, I mean, sure, if you've read about the Indianapolis, you could come up with something, but to riff that kind of on the spot, the way he tells it is that.
I heard
almost too good to be true.
My Jaws filming story that I heard, other than they couldn't get the shark to work, and that's why you didn't see the shark for the first 91 minutes. He was seasick as a dog, and
Who is he?
Robert Shaw. And I think there was one scene they needed to reshoot, and they said he is literally like puking over the side of the boat. He looks like death. They're ready to go, and I think it's the scene where he turns around and yells, "Stop it, Hooper! Aren't you watching them?" when they're chasing the shark, and they yelled action. He delivered the scene. They yelled cut, and he slouched in his chair again, and he was garbage. And they said it was Like he looked like death for all of except 15 seconds when we needed him to shoot, and then he perked right up and did his thing.
It's impressive.
So yes, I need to watch this thing. I've never seen it.
It says here that the Jaws monologue was a collaboration. Shaw contributed a lot, but there was also some writing going on there.
Okay.
So some of it was scripted anyway.
A little bit of both.
Yep.
Nice.
That's that has to be the best scene in the movie.
Maybe.
I could name 3. I think the opening scene is enough to make your hair stand on end in that film. But
I mean, that one's loaded. But it comes like best monologue. Like I would love the Oscars to have like a best.
But could you come up with 5 monologues every year? That might be a little tricky.
No,
it depends. I guess it depends on the movie and what you're looking for. But I guess it also too, like, what are you trained to watch for? Like right now, it's not something we think about necessarily. I got an idea. Maybe it's something you start watching for when it becomes, something worthwhile.
I have an idea.
What?
Each year, we do a historic category of. This year, it's best car chase of all time. And then you have best monologue of all time, because he makes a good point. You can't come up with 5 great monologues every year.
You don't think so?
But over history, could you come up with the 5 greatest monologues of all time? What is the category of this year? 5 greatest murder scenes of all time. 5 greatest,
That's a slightly brilliant idea, Mark. I really, because it brings in, it allows for history
nostalgia.
to catch up. Yeah,
and it brings the conversation.
Oh, you're saying the Oscars should do
They
this.
should do it. They should have a category every year that ranks it all time.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, I thought you were
best final line would be one.
And then you could bring back the people that are still alive, but you could bring back.
I thought you were implying like we should do that, but the Oscars.
No, the Oscars should
is interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. It's like not longevity awards, but essentially like the NBA just did their top 75 of 75. And it was an excuse.
But as he said, like it gives us time to step back and absorb, because we didn't, best prison break, which would go to Shawshank because he dug a hole through the wall.
He left out best nude scene.
Well, no, that would be the first.
There you go.
But
Mark's having a tough time.
Or how about this?
5.
How about this? Best monologue while nude, because we were just talking about Sarah Marshall the other day, and when he was being. Have you ever seen?
I can't think of 5 in that category. Mark, you must watch different movies
Give
from
Mark
me.
3 more minutes. We'll have our.
Have you ever seen Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
I haven't. No.
Oh, he's getting dumped while he's naked.
Jason Segel, right?
And and his girl. Who plays his girlfriend? I can't remember.
Is it Rashida Jones? No.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall. She was in the.
Yes, her, the cute little blonde chick. I can't think of her name either. But she's breaking up with him. He just got out of the shower, and they were all and then she's like, "Would you please put some clothes on?" And he says, "I just love it." He goes, "But as soon as I put my clothes on, it's over."
That's
so he's like lobbying to save the relationship while naked.
She's in the Good Place television show. I cannot think
What's
of her
her name
for the life of me. I don't know. You brought it up. I can't think of it.
All I can think of is Sarah Michelle Gellar, and it's not her.
It's not her. No. Anything else before we go, Joe? Anything you think of? Anything you want to plug?
No,
I do want to plug it. Where is that? Can you show my purchase?
Here's Mark's latest book purchase. This is the man who claims that he doesn't read, so you should be very impressed by this.
But this is good because I can read it in 300 snippets at a time.
That's right. It's a bathroom book. Okay, it's my book on under the radar movies. By the way, A Perfect World is in here, and so is the original Nightmare Alley. Some of the movies we talked about here: Hell or High Water, Wind River. So they're under the radar movies, and
I got mine at Otto's.
Yep, and Otto's has a couple copies.
You can obviously order it online as well.
And it's good. It's a low commitment book because each entry is about a page long. So
I liked it, and I want to take it home, but I wanted to leave it here so you could see it. So when I said I bought my book, you didn't say sure you did. But just to like open it up and to pick one that you've seen before is fun, because now I can compare my thoughts on it with yours. But then, I think everyone that is a movie fan at all is always looking for that next movie that we missed, that we didn't hear of. And now I'll come across some, I'm sure, that not even have I not just not seen, but I've never heard of. And now I'm like, okay, well, this sounds interesting to me, and I'll go find it. So,
And then there's enough information in here that you say, well, that doesn't sound like my kind of film, or this, I think I would really like this because here's the plot and the characters and the cast and the director all sound worthwhile. So all that information is in there.
there you go.
Nice.
Well done.
Good stuff. Joe, thanks for joining us again.
Yep.
You can find
It's been a
Joe
blast.
on NorthcentralPA.com, at North Central Cinema. Again, Belfast, I believe you have coming up.
Yep, I'm just about to
Nice.
sit down and record my review of Belfast. So
Awesome.
you guys
You
are
can
probably
also
tired of me
find
talking
you
about
can
that,
also
but-
find him on the beach because he's going to Florida.
Yes, you can find me on the beach several times a year. I cannot argue with that statement.
Well, thank you guys for watching Midday Show. Thank you for coming on. Thank you to Weiss Markets for coming on, and thank you to Weiss Markets for being our sponsor. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of
Travel safely, sir.
Travel safely. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Joe Smith, and he is Mark Messina.